Do you have an expired cake for my daughter? The millionaire heard everything. The bell above the bakery door rang with a thin, tired sound, the kind that barely announces your presence, and the question followed it like a whisper that didn't want to exist in the world. Do you have an expired cake for my daughter? The words fell between the smell of sugar and yeast, between the bright glass cases and the clean white counters, and for a moment even the ovens seemed to pause. Outside, the city rushed by in polished shoes and confident cars, but inside that small bakery, time bent around a father's voice that carried hunger, shame, and love all at once. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet moments that change lives forever, take a second right now to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this only travel far when hearts carry them. The man who asked that question stood with his shoulders folded inward, as if he could make himself smaller than the truth he carried. His jacket was thin for the season, his hands rough, his eyes fixed on the floor just long enough to gather courage. He wasn't asking for charity in the loud way people imagine, he was asking for dignity. His daughter's birthday was that day. He had promised her a cake. Promises have weight when you're poor, heavier than money, heavier than pride. Behind the counter, the young cashier froze, trained to smile and upsell, not to answer questions like this. She glanced toward the back where the manager was counting inventory, calculating margins, calculating loss, calculating how much softness the day could afford. What neither of them knew was that a man in a tailored coat stood near the window, pretending to read messages on his phone while listening to every syllable. He was a regular here, known for ordering the most expensive pastries and leaving without checking the receipt. His name carried influence in boardrooms and newspapers, and his net worth could have purchased the entire block without denting his sleep. Yet something in that question hooked him, sharp and sudden. An expired cake. Not a discount. Not a free one. An expired cake. The kind that sits forgotten after closing, still sweet enough to make a child smile, still good enough to mean everything to someone who had nothing. The manager came forward with a practiced expression that balanced policy and politeness. He explained that expired items were disposed of, that food safety mattered, that rules existed for a reason. He spoke gently, but his words were firm, the way systems learn to protect themselves. The father nodded, absorbing each sentence like a verdict he expected. He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He simply asked if there was anything at all, even a slice. The cashier looked away. The ovens hummed. The bell over the door stayed silent. The millionaire felt an ache he hadn't named in years. It wasn't pity. It was recognition. He remembered another shop, another bell, another day long before the suits and drivers. He remembered his mother counting coins with fingers that shook from factory shifts, remembered promises she tried to keep by bending the world around them. He remembered a birthday without candles, without guests, without cake, and the way his mother had sung anyway, her voice trembling but determined to make joy out of air. Success had buried those memories under achievements, but a simple question had unearthed them, raw and breathing. The father turned as if to leave, already rehearsing an apology to his daughter, already planning how to turn disappointment into a lesson about patience. The millionaire moved before he could think better of it. He asked the manager to wait, asked for a private word, asked what it would take to buy the day's leftovers. The manager hesitated, rules colliding with opportunity, then nodded. Transactions happened quietly, numbers typed, receipts printed. The bakery did not change its policy. It did something else. It changed a life. When the father was called back, he was offered a box. Inside was a small cake, plain but carefully iced, candles tucked neatly along the side. It wasn't expired. It wasn't discounted. It was perfect. The father stared as if the box might vanish. His hands trembled as he accepted it, his lips parting to speak words that tangled in his throat. Gratitude has a sound when it breaks free, and it filled the bakery with something warmer than sugar. He left with the box cradled like a fragile miracle. The millionaire watched him go, then did something unusual. He stayed. He ordered nothing. He sat and let the feeling settle. Outside, the city continued its confident stride, unaware that a quiet hinge had turned. That evening, the father lit candles in a small apartment where paint peeled and the fridge hummed louder than the television. His daughter's eyes widened at the sight of the cake, not because it was fancy, but because it existed. She clapped, she laughed, She made a wish with the seriousness of someone who believes wishes can work if you believe hard enough. The father watched her and felt a knot loosen in his chest. He did not tell her about the question. He told her about hope. Days passed. The city forgot the moment, as cities do. The father returned to his routine of early mornings and late nights, of applications sent into silence, of jobs that paid less than they took. The millionaire returned to meetings and mergers, to a calendar filled with importance. But the story did not end because it had already begun to move. The cashier, who had looked away, could not stop thinking about the man's eyes. The manager, who had recited policy, began to question what rules were for. And the millionaire, who had listened, started to listen more. He asked his assistant to look into local shelters, into food waste, into how much was thrown away daily in the name of caution. He visited kitchens without cameras, spoke to volunteers without speeches. He learned numbers that felt heavier than any profit report. Food wasted. Children hungry. Dignity eroded not by laziness but by math. He didn't announce a foundation. He didn't schedule a press release. He began with bakeries. The program started quietly. End-of-day items were packaged and delivered to community centers. Staff were trained not just in safety, but in kindness. Vouchers were created that looked like coupons, redeemable for bread and cake alike, no questions asked. The idea was simple and radical: let people receive without being labeled. Let a birthday be a birthday, not a lesson in scarcity. Other shops joined. Then supermarkets. Then restaurants. The city shifted a fraction of an inch, enough to matter. The father heard about the vouchers months later at a community center where he waited for an interview that would decide whether rent would be paid on time. He recognized the bakery logo and felt a strange gratitude bloom again. He used a voucher once, then twice, then not at all. Because things began to change. A steady job came. A schedule that didn't steal weekends arrived. Confidence followed. Dignity returned like a long-lost friend. One afternoon, he found himself back at the bakery, this time with money in his pocket and his daughter at his side. He bought a cake, not small, not plain, the kind with layers and colors. He didn't tell anyone why it mattered. He simply smiled more than he used to. Across the room, a familiar figure stood by the window, coat tailored, posture calm. Their eyes met. No words were exchanged. None were needed. Years later, when the story finally surfaced, it wasn't because someone chased attention. It was because the daughter wrote an essay for school about the birthday she remembered most, about a cake that arrived when it wasn't supposed to, about how it taught her that the world could be kind in unexpected ways. The essay traveled. People recognized themselves in it. They remembered moments when a small mercy had changed their trajectory. The city listened this time. Near the end of his life, the millionaire returned to that bakery alone. The bell still rang with the same tired sound. He ordered a simple pastry and sat by the window. He thought about how wealth had once felt like armor and now felt like a tool. He thought about how listening had been the real turning point, not money. He thought about the father's question, still echoing, still instructive. Do you have an expired cake for my daughter? It had been a request shaped by love, and love had reshaped a system, inch by inch. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that small choices can create ripples far beyond what we see, please like the video, share it with someone who needs a reminder, and subscribe so these stories keep finding their way to the people who need them most. And just before we end, here's a special request: comment below with a moment when someone's kindness changed your life, even in a small way. Those moments matter more than we think. Because somewhere tonight, a bell will ring above a door, and a question will be asked that sounds small but carries the weight of a world. And if someone listens, truly listens, everything can change.